Stop. Before you do anything else today, before you check another notification, answer another message, or move to the next thing on your list, I need to ask you a question. When was the last time you were truly still? I don't mean asleep, scrolling, or resting while your mind raced through tomorrow's to-do list. When last were you truly still? Most people watching this cannot remember, and I don't say that to judge you. I say it because neither could I. Until I found something hidden inside this ancient Hebrew word that completely changed the way I understand rest, time, and God's presence. Today I'm going to show you 3 things buried inside the word Shabbat, things that were lost in translation, that will change not just how you rest, but how you live. Don't go anywhere, because the third one, the prophetic secret, is the one that will wreck you in the best possible way. The English word Sabbath comes from the Hebrew Shabbat. Most of us grew up hearing it means rest, and that's not wrong, but it is dangerously incomplete. Here is what most people don't know. Hebrew is a root-based language. Every word is built on a 3-letter root, and that root carries layers of meaning that English translation simply cannot hold. When you read rest, you're getting one layer, but underneath that layer are hidden rooms, theological, prophetic, deeply personal rooms that God built into this word from the very beginning. Today we're going to open 3 of those rooms, and I promise you, by the time we're done, the Sabbath will never look like a religious checkbox again. Room number 1. This is where everything starts. In Genesis 2 verse 2, the Bible says, "And on the 7th day God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work." Now when you read the word rested, what picture comes into your mind? God exhaling somewhere? Taking a seat? Maybe even being tired? Here's the problem. That picture is completely wrong. The Hebrew word used in that verse is Shavat, and it does not mean tired. It does not mean worn out. It doesn't even really mean rest in the way we use that word in English. Shavat means to cease, to deliberately stop an action. This is not a subtle difference. This is everything. Because think about what you're saying when you translate it as rested. You're implying God needed something, that 6 days of creation had taken something from him, and he needed to recover. But the God who breathes out galaxies and calls the stars by name was not tired on day 7. He chose to stop. Now ask the obvious question, why? Think about a master craftsman, someone who has spent weeks building something extraordinary. The moment they put down their tools is not the moment they gave up. It is the moment the work became complete. And in that completion, they can finally stand back, look at what they made, and be present with it. That is Shavat. God ceased, not to recover from creation, but to dwell within it, to be present with what he had made, including you. And here's where it lands personally. Most of us treat rest like recovery. We rest because we're depleted. We stop because we have nothing left. But that's not what Sabbath is. Shabbat asks you to stop before you're depleted, not as a sign of weakness, but as an act of spiritual intentionality. You are choosing to disengage from the world's frequency so that you can tune into God's. You're not stopping because the work broke you. You're stopping because you refuse to let the work become you. That is the first secret. But here's the thing. Once you understand why God stopped, you still have to ask, what was he stopping into? What is the actual content of Sabbath rest? And that is exactly where the second Hebrew root takes us. Room 2, Sheva. The Hebrew word for 7 is Sheva, and this is where it gets interesting. Because in the Hebrew language, Sheva doesn't just count, it covenants. In Genesis 21, Abraham and Abimelech make a binding agreement. Abraham sets apart 7 lambs as the seal of that covenant. The place is named Beersheba, which literally means well of 7, or well of the oath. In Hebrew culture, swearing an oath and the number 7 are inseparably linked. To seven yourself meant to bind yourself by promise. So when God chose the seventh day for Sabbath, He wasn't just choosing an arbitrary number at the end of the week. He was embedding a covenant declaration into the structure of time itself. The seventh day carries the same weight as a sworn oath. It says, "This is finished. This is whole. This is sealed." Now stay with me, because this is where it becomes intensely practical. When you and I spend every waking hour hustling, filling every gap, grinding through weekends, checking emails at midnight, we are sending a message. Whether we mean to or not, we are saying with our actions, "It's not enough yet. There is still something I need to secure. God's provision isn't quite sufficient, so I'll pick up the slack." That is the spiritual posture of a person who has not yet entered Shabbat. But when you deliberately stop, when you Shavat on the day of Sheva, you are making a declaration of faith louder than any prayer you could speak out loud. You are saying, "The covenant is sealed. God has already provided. I am not behind. I am not lacking. I am not one more work session away from being okay." Hebrews 4:3 says it with stunning clarity. We who have believed enter that rest. The rest already exists. It was finished at the foundation of the world. Your striving doesn't generate the provision. Your ceasing is simply your agreement that the provision was already there. This is why the enemy fights your rest harder than almost anything else. A busy Christian is a distracted Christian, but a Christian who has genuinely entered Sabbath rest, who has made peace with the sufficiency of God, is operating from a completely different level of spiritual authority. Your stopping is not passive. It is a covenant act. It is worship in the form of trust. Now, we've seen that Sabbath means to cease. We've seen that it carries the weight of covenant fullness. But there is one more room, and this is the one that opens up eternity. Room 3, Menuha. There is a Hebrew word I want you to hold carefully, Menuha. It is translated as rest, but that translation barely touches it. Menuha is not simply the absence of noise. It is the presence of something, a deep, settled, complete shalom that feels less like an empty room and more like arriving home after a long journey and knowing you never have to leave again. The ancient Jewish sages used Menuha to describe the atmosphere of God's presence. Not just quiet, but whole. Not just still, but arrived. And here is the prophetic thread hidden inside this word that most Bible teachers never make it to. The Sabbath, according to the Hebrew prophets, is not just a weekly rhythm. It is a preview, a foretaste, a shadow cast backward in time from something coming. Colossians 2:17 says the Sabbath is a shadow of the things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. Think about what a shadow is. A shadow tells you something real is approaching. The shadow of a tree means there's a tree. The shadow of a person means a person is near. The Sabbath, every single week, is a shadow, and the substance casting that shadow is Jesus. The prophets described a coming age, a great cosmic Shabbat, when the Messiah reigns, when creation is fully restored, when Menuha is not a weekly appointment, but the permanent atmosphere of existence. Paul captures the groaning for it in Romans 8, all of creation straining forward toward that final rest. Every time you keep the Sabbath, every time you enter that deliberate, faithful ceasing, you are not just honoring an old covenant rhythm. You are rehearsing for eternity. You are practicing the posture of a world that has received its king. A world where the striving is over, where the covenant is complete, where Menuha fills everything. And then Jesus says it in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The Greek word there, anapausis, carries the same weight as Menuha. Come, stop, arrive, be home. He wasn't just offering a nap. He was offering the very thing the Sabbath had been pointing to for thousands of years. He is the Sabbath. He is the ceasing. He is the covenant fullness. The Sabbath was never just a rule. It was always a portrait of him. Let's pull it all together. Shavat means to cease, not because you're broken, but because the work is complete and God is calling you to be present with him in it. Sheva means 7, fullness, covenant oath. Every Sabbath is God renewing his declaration over your life. You lack nothing. I have already provided. The oath stands. And Menuha means deep, settled, arrived peace. The Sabbath is a weekly foretaste of eternity, a rehearsal for the age when Christ reigns and Menuha fills all of creation. Here is what I want you to do this week. Don't just schedule a day off. Don't just sleep in. Shavat. Choose one thing that keeps you tethered to the world's noise, your phone, your inbox, your planning, and deliberately lay it down for a few hours. Not because you have to, because you believe the provision is already there, because you trust the covenant, because you are a person who knows how to be present with God. Give him that Menuha space and see what he fills it with. If these Hebrew roots open something in you today, if this changed the way you see the Sabbath, I want you to type Shabbat Shalom in the comments right now. That's your declaration. That's you saying, this week, I'm stepping into something different. And if you want to keep going deeper into the hidden layers of Scripture, the things English translation cannot carry, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. Until next time, beloved, Shabbat Shalom.